Happy Saturday afternoon and evening, everyone. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, everyone's doing well and having a good start to the weekend here. Hopefully, everyone's doing their Christmas shopping without any issues here. We do have some stuff going on with the weather in the short term and also the long term. We're going to be covering that. So, hope you guys find this useful here. If you do, definitely smash that like button. If you're new, hit that subscribe button and definitely hit that share button, because we're going to be taking a look at Christmas and maybe even New Year's. So without further ado here, let's get into things here. So that being said, low pressure heading towards Florida right now. Currently no severe warnings, but we could anticipate a few changes as we head towards evening with that slight risk in effect still. This is mainly entailing a 5% tornado threat for late tonight into the overnight hours actually, and maybe even into some parts of the early morning hours. Here's that 5% threat that we're mentioning, and also the 15% wind threat to go along with that. Hail threat's pretty minimal with this one. We go to day 2. We see the slight risk that's been issued up here towards the Carolina coast. This also entails a 2% tornado threat and a 15% wind threat. We're actually going to be covering the threat tonight a little bit later, probably about 1:30 or 2 a.m. Don't expect you to be up for the stream, but if you do, be sure to hang out and hit that like button for a little bit. Appreciate you even keeping me company during all of that. But that being said here, after day 2, not really too much anything going on here. Day 3, it's just regular thunderstorm risk, nothing crazy going on here. And from that point, for the most part, potential for severe weather kind of drops off from that point, so there's some good news to be had there. May still have to watch a little bit closer towards Christmas itself, to where there could be a marginal chance at best. That being said, we're going to go to split screen and get into that here. Alright, so anyone that's been here for a minute, you kind of know how the drill works. We have the classic Euro model over here on the left screen and the GFS to the right screen. We're starting out with the upper levels of the atmosphere here, and with the Euro first. So, as we already know, we have our storm system out here towards Florida right here in the southeast, going to be causing its share of troubles here. And then as we go through the day, we might have to watch the northeast for some cold rain, maybe some snow on the backside of this. And a little bit of a cool down towards the southeast and really just the eastern half of the U.S. as a whole here to start next week or this upcoming week. And then after that, we start to see some ridging begin to come into play here. And while it's not going to be very strong ridging, it's going to be enough to where we get some warmer temperatures over here. We might see more 50s being widespread across the east here. More 40s, not as many cooler mornings. There's still going to be a little bit frigid for some of us, but not anything too out of whack here. Here's our next storm system that we're watching, and this doesn't really form up very well, but the thing is, GFS and the Euro during the wintertime can always be the tale of two models, and this is what's going to end up being the case here. You'll see it in just a moment when we talk about GFS, but with the Euro, it seems like this storm becomes the dominant system here to watch, and this will be the day after Christmas. With this scenario, I don't really expect too much of anything to be going on during Christmas as it stands right now. Of course, this usually changes run by run, so take this with a grain of salt, because we're looking about 10 days out at this point. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out with this. And then, of course, like I said, if we go to the GFS, we start out with the similar look. There's always more confidence in the short range, as we already know. But once we get into the longer range, this is where things change. Weak ridging, of course, no real surprises there. And here comes our storm system right here. And then that little secondary area of low pressure is a lot further to the north with this. And it kind of helps allow this storm system to grow a little bit more organized. Does this end up becoming a wintry system? From the looks of it, no. But this trough here digs in as well, and this is where things kind of get interesting for me, because this looks like it's going to bring in a lot of cold air, but also has that kind of ski jump look here. So depending on other elements such as lift, instability, moisture, we could maybe see another severe weather threat coming into play here just after Christmas. Will this end up coming into fruition? I'm not too sure. Obviously, we're past the 10-day mark at this point, so not much I can really say there. Can't put much merit into it. Here's another big area of low pressure over here hanging around a couple days after Christmas. And this is an indicator of a pattern flip here. And then as we continue to go on here, it looks like we start to see really active flow here across the deep south here as we head towards maybe the end of the year. So we'll have to see what ends up coming to be from this, but this could bring maybe even some winter weather into the equation here. Can't guarantee it. Like I said, the further out you go on a model run, the more bullish the model runs can sometimes be. So we have to just continue to watch for more or less a trend more so than a forecast. So we'll switch over to 500 millibars. It's towards the middle of the atmosphere that we're starting to look at here, but slightly higher than the dead middle of the atmosphere, I should say. And you can kind of see pretty much similar deals starting out with. You see cool down coming here with that trough coming in, and then the ridging becomes more prevalent as we get towards the end of this upcoming week here, starting into next week. The storm system that's lagging a little further back becomes the dominant system here from the looks of it on the Euro here. But of course, this is 12Z, 18Z GFS just came out. So, like I said, a lot of room for changes and alterations with these model runs. So, like I said, a lot of this you're going to have to take with a grain of salt, especially after you get past the 72-hour mark, because it just changes that fast. Like there's been a lot of times this year where we've seen a lot of model runs just change with every new run that's come in, and really it wouldn't be until about maybe 12 hours before said event would happen. Great example was the Tennessee tornado outbreak, or the Ohio Valley tornado outbreak, I should call it. Speaking of which, let me know in the comments what you would want to name that outbreak. The Nashville tornado outbreak, the Tennessee outbreak, the Dixie Alley outbreak. What would you call it? Not like that's really important, by the way, but just curious as to what your thoughts are. But here's where things start to change between GFS and Euro. This system does a lot better in comparison, and I think that could be partially in fact due to this up level low that tries to develop here. This low lags back in a way to where it doesn't really hamper this low pressure system. Not really enough cold air to really cause a lot of snow in any case for right now as far as the mid levels of the atmosphere, but it is definitely something that we still need to watch. And then just out ahead of it, like I said, that ski jump look that I've been seeing here definitely interests me a little bit. You do see a tiny bit of evidence of convergence and divergence, air rushing away from the system and going towards the system possibly. So like I said, maybe towards the eve of Christmas Day, we might be having to look at some severe weather possibly. If it does come to that, I will stream it, by the way. But the fact of the matter is, do have to keep an eye on that low of this little trough here, which actually does look like it has a negative tilt orientation to it, so we'll have to watch that closely. And then as time continues to go on, here's where things get kind of wacky. Here's that really big area of cold air, negative tilt trough coming in, and this is where the Northeast could get whomped by this if this ends up coming to be. Of course, like I said, 300 hours out. A lot of room for change. Normally runs like this don't even hold out for too long, but if this does come to be, this could bring some snow towards a large section of the Northeast here, and maybe even towards the mid-Atlantic as well. Then, of course, as we get closer as we start the new year, it's another big system on the way. May even be another player for severe weather around the start of the new year, which would be crazy. But of course, like I said, further out we go, the more headstrong, bullish these runs end up being. Let's go ahead and take a look at our height anomalies here. This is a look at what our air masses are going to be like at the mid levels, and this does usually have a decent bit of correlation with the what our weather patterns will end up doing. So we'll go ahead and just put this into loop first, and we'll kind of show you what we have going on here. The current low pressure systems going here is our trough, and then once that ridging starts, here's where that warm air starts to spread a little bit. Not an amazing look, but it's a look nonetheless. And then, of course, towards the end of the run, like I said, right around the other half, the back end of Christmas, heading towards New Year's, is where that next storm is that we're going to have to be watching. So no real surprises to be had there. And then, of course, here is the GFS. We'll try to speed this loop up just a tiny bit since we're going a little further out. Pretty much a similar deal starting out. Change doesn't really start to occur here until we get about, let's say, 120 hours out. Then here we go. Here's that first storm system. Starts to fizzle out, and then we get these next two coming in, and this is where things get a little crazy. Look how strong those air masses end up getting as time goes on. So, like I said, while we're looking into no man's land, as I call it, it definitely looks like we start to ramp back up here. Of course, at one point we were thinking that this time of year, right now, would be pretty active, and to a point, it somewhat is in all fairness. But I was thinking maybe a couple more wintry systems will be coming into play here. But as it stands right now, Christmas might be rather tame, depending on which model you look at. But nothing's really certain right now either. So, like I said, stay tuned. We'll be keeping you informed on all of this here. That being said, let's go ahead and go on to the next. Let's go on and go to our moisture returns. And this is where we're going to be kind of looking out more for severe weather. You're not going to see as much on the Euro here because the potential just isn't very high with the setups that are being displayed on here right now. There's not really any low pressures that are able to take advantage of the moisture that's being set into place here at this current time. Like I said, we may have to watch one on the 21st, but like I said, I just don't think things are really coming together based off of what's being shown on the Euro here. GFS might paint a little bit different of a picture. GFS is usually pretty aggressive with its moisture returns on its model runs. So this is our current system right here, and then of course, as I mentioned before, at about 90 hours we start to see a little bit of change here. Towards the 23rd, 24th here, like I said, questionable as to whether or not that system ends up turning into anything on the winter side. On the severe side, it gets a little bit more interesting. You see a decent little bit of moisture return beginning to develop here out ahead of where that low pressure will be with that trough. Nothing super impressive, but definitely something that might be worth watching on my end for a bit here. So like I said, we'll be doing more updates on this throughout the course of the week as we draw closer to the holidays. So we'll be making updates at least once every other day. And depending on how things trend, we may go once a day beyond that point, depending on how things trend. But as we go into no man's land here, we do see a couple of decent moisture returns. Nothing super impressive. Maybe towards the Texas coast, we might have to watch something as we head towards New Year's Eve. And then right after New Year's Day, there's a tiny little moisture nose, but nothing super impressive. This definitely kind of leans right now towards the look of maybe more of a wintry system, but we'll have to see how this plays out here. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at our temperatures in the short term, especially as we head towards Christmas. We'll start out with the Euro, add the GFS in there as well. But this is where we are right now. I'm going to move this forward a bit. This is how we're going to start out the week. Like I said, the east is going to get a little bit cold to start out with. Even getting some below freezing temperatures into South Georgia, South Alabama, and southern Mississippi here. So it could be a frigid morning as we get into Tuesday. And Wednesday should be pretty frigid as well across the eastern half of the country. In particular, a lot colder than what we're used to. But as we go into Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, we start to see that warm up begin to take place again. And really all that cold air retreats to the northeast. Meanwhile, towards the central of the country out west, we start to see some cold air coming back in as we head towards Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And this is where the cold air really tries to rush in with that system. And this is why I'm a little bit interested in seeing what that does. But like I said, tale of two models here kind of makes it hard to have any sort of confidence in anything right now. But this is the GFS we're looking at. It's pretty much a similar deal. Frigid mornings ahead out east, and then eventually we start to see that persist across the west here. So we go towards Christmas Eve. Here's that storm system coming in. And like I said, not really much in the way of cold air coming in behind it now. And just no real cold air to support any sort of snow at this point. So for most of us during Christmas, I think it's going to be a rather tame one. At one point, like I said before, we were looking like we were dealing with storms. Now we looks like we've done a complete 180 in the opposite direction. But as we continue to go on, here's that cold air really starting to kick in now for just about everybody at this point now. Whereas before it would be one particular region of the country, now we're seeing everybody starting to catch a piece of it. We're even starting to see some below zero low temperatures coming into play across the northern tiers of the US. This is about what we were seeing more so towards last year, but I'm just thankful I don't have to work in it like I did last year as well. Of course, like I said, we're looking pretty far out, so things can easily change with this. But based off some things I've seen, I can have maybe the tiniest little sliver of confidence in that. However, like I said, we're looking more for trends, not trying to make a forecast 16 days out. So with that being said, this is what we're looking at right now, and this is what we'll be basing our trend on from both our models here. So looking at the Euro here, we're going to start out by seeing this storm work its way through Florida, maybe bring some severe weather. Same thing for the Carolinas as far as Sunday afternoon, maybe even Sunday evening as well. And then after that, picture starts to calm down a little bit. Maybe a little bit of snow towards the eastern parts of the Great Lakes, towards Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. And then after that, things kind of calm down as we head through the middle of this week. And then really, like I said, not until next week do we start to see some activity here. We see a little bit of cold rain at best, nothing to be super concerned with. Then here's a system trying to form right around Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. Mainly towards the northwest and maybe towards the eastern Rockies could we see some snowfall. But for the most part, it's going to be rather light, rather insignificant. Accumulation is possible, though. And then right after that, that's when we start looking at this next system according to the Euro. Compare that with the GFS and keep an eye on this time frame here in the top left corner here, right before we look into the hour range, which is east. But right here is our time frame where I have the cursor. We see pretty much a similar deal starting out. And then as we continue to go on here, that next system does progress its way, towards the southwest here. Do get a little bit of cold air and moisture trying to meet up towards the higher elevations. We do see some wintry weather as a result of that, but notice how the snow shield isn't anywhere near as impressive as the Euro is, and even the Euro wasn't that impressive. This leads me to think we're mainly going to be dealing with a lot of areas seeing a little bit of cold rain through Christmas. Maybe towards the back end of the day, we might see some snowfall towards the higher elevations out towards the west, but for the most part, we're dealing with rain across the board. And here's that bigger system that might be coming in a little bit behind that, getting some moisture to meet up with that cold air here, it looks like, based off of this run. But this is a little bit bold in my opinion right now. But if that low does end up trying to develop here, could be an interesting scenario where you could even see snow towards Atlanta if this ends up being the case. All while in the meanwhile, we get a bigger system that tries to develop and get some snow on the backside over here towards the Great Lakes, maybe even towards the northeast. And then after that, here's that big system that I'm going to be keeping an extra close eye on over the coming week. This is going to be towards New Year's Day. If this ends up coming into fruition here, we could have a big time winter storm coming out of this. Like I said, with all that I'm seeing here, given the temperatures and the moisture return here, I don't really lean towards a severe weather setup. There's not really much of a warm sector. But if this comes to be here, could be snow in the deep south possibly. Like I said, 16 days out though. Not much merit I can put into that. So that being said, best thing you can do, just as I can do, is just stay tuned and see what happens here. But that's all I got for you guys on this video. I'll be streaming the severe weather potential in the Florida Peninsula tonight, probably about 1:30, maybe even 2 a.m. Eastern time. So you do choose to watch, appreciate you coming in. Even if you don't, still appreciate you regardless. Thank you guys for helping me get to 600 subs. Appreciate you a bunch, and I will see you all again very soon. Till then, it's been Tyler Metalhead Weatherman. You guys take care and have a good rest of your Saturday. I'll see you soon.